This is probably going to be a pretty blunt question, but knowing what you know now, having been on the inside, why does Sydney Uni consistently win?
It's funny. Laurie, you spoke with Laurie Weeks before. Laurie Weeks said to me, in the euphoria of the win, he goes, other clubs say we don't have culture. This is culture. Got me thinking. Yeah, Sydney Uni does have a culture, right?
Definitely.
It's a winning culture. It is a culture of winning. It's like a cult. It's like the senior players, they pass down to the younger players. This is how you train. This is how you behave. This is how you win. And it's as blunt as that. They just refuse to accept anything else. And I'm talking about guys like Jack McCalman. He's won the Premiership in Colts, in reserve grade, and now in first grade. It's because winning is the culture. What creates a winning culture is how you train, how you behave, how you prepare, how you review, how you learn from losses. All that makes up your winning culture. And I think it's been passed down, over many, many years. A guy like Nobby Malone still floats around the place, and Dan, he talks about his time with Dan Vickerman and when they were living in the college at St. John's, and basically they just rock up there and write, this is what we're going to do. And then he went from playing into coaching. Timmy Davidson, Tom Carter, those names all get thrown around because the senior guys at the club at the moment, they remember being told, this is what we do. They got told that by Tom Carter. And they now turn around and tell the younger blokes, the Colts, this is what we do. So it's a real legacy, I suppose you call it. They just pass it on. They pass the baton down all the time, and it's the next man up mentality. Someone might get picked in third grade and they're a little bit down in the dumps because they think they're a second grader who should be pushing for first grade. They get told pretty quickly, you go out and you perform your best for third grade. That's what we do. Just make sure you win for third grade. And you will get your opportunity.
How do you create that? Because that's got to be that's the question I think everyone who's ever involved in any sport wants to answer. Is it something that you can?
Well, I think you can create it, but it doesn't get done in one season. And you need that. You need those leaders to understand it and to be prepared to live it, and then be prepared to pass it on. So when they're getting towards the end of their first grade career, they've got to be prepared to go, oh, you know what, I want to pass this on to the next generation. And that's where Sydney have been very lucky, particularly in the last couple of years. We're talking about guys getting pro contracts and going all off and over the world. Nick Ryan, the director of rugby there, has been very, very active in reconnecting with everyone all over the world. And he's got them all on a database and he just keeps in touch with them. So Tom English comes back, plays 2 or 3 weeks of reserve grade before he gets a shot in first grade. And he says to me, you put me wherever you want. I'm happy. I just want to play rugby for Sydney Uni. Like that.
Sammy Talakai.
Yeah,
see, that's something I've always said. Like, I kind of came through the Paddy Ryan era, and Paddy, 100 Super Rugby games, would always go back and play for Sydney Uni whenever he could. He'd play second grade if he had to. And anyone that's ever played for Sydney Uni has that similar mindset.
Yep.
Which I think any club would love to have that.
And I think it all comes back to a lot of those guys would have all played Colts at the club. Sorry, maybe not all, most. Nobby, I think, had one of his first years in Canberra, but then he came up and lived in college. I think that it's like I said about Justin Harrison. I introduced him to 2 blokes from Inverell, and they're now 2 of his best mates. Like, your best mates tend to be those guys that when you first leave school and you first go to the pubs with, and you make probably a lot of mistakes on and off field with your mates, and you become a really tight group. And that's what Sydney Uni has a lot of. They're very lucky. They benefit from the college system, St. John's, St. Andrews, St. Paul's, because a lot of those guys will go out of going to boarding schools, some of them, or going to at least attending private schools, and they go and live in the colleges. And then all of a sudden you're living with your best mates. You eat, sleep, breathe, go to the pub, drink, train hard, play hard on and off the field, and you just become this really connected group. And so therefore, if there's ever an opportunity for you to reconnect or be a part of it, or look your mates in the eye and say, I don't feel like playing for Sydney Uni this weekend. Like, that's just not done, because they're such tight mates. It's mateship and the brotherhood of it all, I think, really keeps them going. They're lucky that that's what they've got, that college system to sort of to really bring that.
Do you think that's a big an advantage as everyone says it is? Like, other clubs have access to great facilities. Other clubs have resources. Other clubs have universities. Like, is it that much of an advantage, do you think?
I think the living together is a really big advantage. That's probably, like, I know Randwick's got that good association with UNSW. I don't know if it's quite the same, because you see these guys, like I said, they just live together. They rock up to training together. They walk home to train together. They go and eat together. Like, it's, Benny Darwin's thing about cohesion. He actually gave a really good presentation to the group that's called the Friends of Sydney University, which are the alumni and the business people who do a great job of offering mentorship to the graduating players. And Benny Darwin gave a really good presentation on that cohesion factor. And, he presents that to professional teams. And I think he's breaking into the European soccer market these days with about cohesion between players equals success. And he made the point that Sydney University would have the highest cohesion factor out of any rugby club just about in the world, because not only do you have the guys all rocking up and playing Colts together, but then you divide those groups down, and there's groups of players who would have all played together at Riverview or at Kings. For example, in that grand final winning team of ours, Jack McCalman, Kieran Lowe, Eddie Pullman, Henry Robertson, they're all from Kings. And even though Jack would have been a few years above them, there's still that cohesion factor of, they got taught probably, by Stephen James at the school. So it's interesting, all those little cohesion factors equals, it was a bunch of players that are more connected than anyone else. Like, that is easily the most connected group I've ever been a part of. There's Ben Hughes, Tim Clements, Rowan O'Regan. They were winning their third Shute Shield. Like I said, Jack McCalman was winning his third Premiership with the club. They've all been there together and come through together. And they, like I said, they get passed down the message that's all the same the whole time.
What's interesting as well, like, rugby fundamentally is a very difficult game to play. If you have an attachment to the place you're playing for and the people that you're playing with, you're far more likely to put in when it gets tough than of some guy you just met who just rocked up, a year ago or 2 years ago. So these guys would have all grown up together, basically. And,
that's it.
We've all had friends. I've got friends I grew up with who I'm very close with still, and you'd be the same as well.
Yeah, definitely. And these guys are playing, as you said, a very difficult game with those guys. Like I said, now there's a couple of powerful things we did in grand final week about the group talking to each other about that sort of thing. And you could tell that there was, like I said, the most connected group that I've ever been a part of. It was fantastic.